I put so much pressure on being able to perform that I knew that I told myself the famous story that we're all familiar with. I need to get a lot of really good sleep tonight, or else the world's gonna end tomorrow. And sure enough, I didn't sleep a wink that night. The fact that I had gone to the highest possible authority, not just a doctor, not just the almighty doctor, but specifically the sleep doctor. And I walked away. Remember, he had nothing for me. Nothing. Zero. I was on the phone with my dad. And I said, and I even went to an insomnia coach and a sleep coach, and it didn't work. And he said, well, why don't you just get a second opinion? And thank God he said that. Just look up somebody else. Maybe you just need to hear it differently, whatever. It's like, and I had no expectations of doing that. It was just more like, fine, okay, whatever. I'll just do it. And I looked up, the sleep coach program again, even though the book didn't do anything for me. And I was like, this is the same program by the same guy. Already know what he's going to say. Wakefulness. Signed up for the Insomnia Immunity Program. And I started watching. It was in that exact moment of watching, for whatever reason, I don't know what the cosmic coincidence was, but when I heard Daniel in those 2 4-minute videos describe perceived threats and befriending wakefulness. And that night, I slept.
Hi, community. Welcome to another very special episode of Talking Insomnia. I'm Coach Ali. Today, I have with me Coach John, very, very soon to be Coach John. You're just finishing up your certification program through the Sleep Coach School, which is so very exciting. And you've agreed to share your insomnia recovery story with us today, which I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here, John.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be wrapping up with the certification program, and I think we're in the same come from the same school of thought, where there are more of these success stories we get out there. The better chance we have of helping more people. So yeah, thank you for having me.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And they really are lifelines for people when you're in the throes of it. I remember they just being just so helpful. So thank you for agreeing to do this. It really does help the community so much. Well, without further ado, let's just jump right in. So do you want to tell us how insomnia started for you and just kind of walk us through your journey?
Sure. Yeah. So I fall into the category of I can pinpoint the exact date, the exact time that it all happened for me. So, all throughout my whole life, I slept great. Never had any issues. I would be able to have to drink a huge can of Monster Energy drink and then pass right out. Yeah, maybe I would wake up with heart palpitations, but that's another thing altogether. But so for me, it started when I was. It was the night before the start of my professional career as a software developer.
Okay.
And I had a lot of performance anxiety. I mean, I also had a lot of super common imposter syndrome as well. So I told myself, tomorrow I'm gonna crush it. I better crush it, or else,
Right.
And
no pressure.
no pressure at all. Yeah. And I put so much pressure on being able to perform that I knew that I told myself the famous story that we're all familiar with. I need to get a lot of really good sleep tonight, or else, the world's going to end tomorrow.
Right.
And, sure enough, I didn't sleep a wink that night. And, I went into, I didn't think much of it at the time. I just went into, I just had the idea that this is going to suck, but whatever. I went to work. And so I think on my lunch break, I looked up some things like, okay, well, what can I take tonight? What can I do tonight that's really going to help me sleep? Oh, I've already got some melatonin back at home. Maybe I've got some lemon balm supplement too. So I'll just take that. And surely I'll definitely sleep tonight. And once same thing. Yeah. Because, it was the start of the work week, and I still had that pressure of, okay, I still need to perform really well tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after. So
right.
And that pressure just didn't go away. And this
Kept
was
building.
it kept building, yeah. And it was the first time in my life where I had gone 2 to 3 to 4 nights of no sleep. And I told myself, well, okay, you know what? This is weird, but whatever. Tomorrow is Friday or Saturday. When it got to the weekend, I told myself, it's going to be fine. I don't have work tonight, so I'm going to sleep just fine now. And sure enough, Friday night, sleep did not happen. And that's really what kickstarted this 7 year awful hellish journey that was insomnia. And
thanks for clarifying that, because I was going to ask you, what year was this, that first initial night right before you started this big new awesome software developer job?
Yeah, so I think I can pinpoint exactly to 2017 August 13th.
Okay, that is specific.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm off by like a day or so, but it's exactly right around that time frame.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying. So 7 years. Okay.
Yeah. And so this really kickstarted this snowball effect of me doing everything in my power to research every single possible thing I could. And I went into this with no tools. Again, this was something that was brand new to me. And it was really strange that I've never had this issue before. And I had a lot of well-intentioned advice from a lot of my peers, from my varying people in my support system. Oh, take a hot bath right before.
Yes.
Oh, you know what you have to do is that, the person in my social life that was really into lifting weights, you know what you should do? You should lift weights. From the person in my social life who was a vegetarian, what you should do? You should eat a lot of vegetables. And
I so understand. Yes. Yeah. Well-meaning, but yeah.
Yeah. So what really got me scared was when I just finally decided, like, I don't know how long I was into, I was dealing with insomnia at this point before I finally decided, like, maybe you should go to a sleep physician or a sleep doctor. And I finally went to one, maybe after like 6 to 8 months or something like that. And I don't know why I waited so long. In hindsight, I'm kind of surprised I waited that long, but I went to one. And first of all, it took me forever for the referral to go through, for the insurance to get worked out, which is just a whole other issue altogether, because it gives you that sense of, I will not feel relief until this referral goes through, with our medical system. God knows how long that'll take.
Right.
And I had an appointment with this guy. Didn't really learn much, but they said, well, take home this wearable device that has a bunch of electrodes, like a lot of sticky things that it'll monitor your body, and we'll see we'll see what turns up. Okay, fine. So took it home and had what I perceived to be no sleep at all whatsoever. And I was like, okay, great. They're going to get all the data that they want. They're going to know exactly what the problem is, because I have a lot of, as an engineer, I approach this problem in a very technical way.
Of course.
Combine that with like a type A, I have to fix this problem sort of mentality. I didn't know this at the time, but this added a lot of fuel to the fire. This is very common and prevalent in the insomnia.
Very common.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was excited. I was like, they've got all the data they need. They're going to figure this out. And so I gave it back to them, scheduled a follow-up appointment, and went into the office. And they said, yeah, no, you slept fine.
Wow.
You sure? And at this point, I was starting to get a little pissed off at, this person who had the audacity to tell me with a straight face that I slept totally fine. I was like, no, I didn't. I'm pretty sure I was wide awake. And the technician was looking at the data. He's like, no, I'm looking at this now. It looks like that you slept just fine. So now it couldn't make heads or tails of it. So I'm okay. Well, this is just the technician. Let me speak to the sleep doctor. And I couldn't remember a single thing about that conversation. The only thing I remembered was leaving feeling completely demoralized because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Almost like you're feeling like you're being gaslit, right? It's like, what are you telling me I'm crazy? Like I was
it,
awake.
yeah, yeah. So, but not only that, the gaslighting part of it, but also the fact that I had gone to the highest possible authority,
Right.
not just a doctor, not just the
Yes.
almighty doctor, but specifically the sleep
Sleep.
doctor.
Right.
And I walked away. Remember, he had nothing for me,
Yeah.
nothing, zero. And I'm not saying this as I'm not trying to sound like I'm anti-medicine or anti-doctor or anti-authority by any means. That's just the truth of it. I had
Yeah.
no actionable information to go off of.
Yeah.
And
I had the same experience with a sleep physician, so I completely understand.
yeah. So, I mean, at that point, now it wasn't just hopeless, but also really scared
Yeah.
that now now I was convinced, like, okay, well, if the sleep doctor didn't find anything, maybe there's some other part of my body that's wrong. If it's my, who knows, nervous system, digestive system, whatever, this, I guess,
Mhm.
is going to kickstart a journey of me gradually putting in a referral and for each and every single kind of medical specialist there is, and just going through it one by one, and fingers crossed, hopefully that's something, because I definitely unlocked something in my psyche, or something that prevents me from falling asleep. The term I used was, it felt like I had opened Pandora's box.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like it feels like a switch has been turned on
Hmm.
that you can't turn off. Like it's just on the on switch, and
That's right.
you don't know what to do. You
Yeah.
can't turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love, and the Pandora's box. Agreed. It feels like, whew, yeah,
Yeah.
can't close it.
And and that was just going to be it. And us the turning point started when I forget. I think my next plan of attack was to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and a friend recommended somebody, and I got them on the phone, and they said, "Well, I'm not looking for any new. I'm booked up. I'm not accepting new patients right now. So another devastating blow for in terms of hope." But they told me,
Mhm.
after hearing the symptoms that you've told me over the phone, go get the book "Say Goodnight to Insomnia." I think
Mhm.
that's going to do it for you. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yes, I have definitely heard of it. I have not read it myself, but
Mhm.
I'm familiar with it. Yes.
Now, it's been a while since I've read the book, so I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's strictly CBTI.
It is. It's a CBTI book. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I forget 99% of the book, but that was my first exposure to the concept of sleep restriction
Okay.
and the sleep restriction window. And I thought, okay, this seems really counterintuitive to me, but what the hell? By this point, I've exhausted every single supplement, routine, every single sleep hygiene thing.
Did the sleep
Imaginable.
doctor give you any medication to try, or did he not even do that?
No.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And it
All
kind of
right.
surprising in hindsight. Like, you would think that he would, at the very least, suggest something like trazodone or something like that. Not to
Yeah.
suggest that that is the ultimate end all answer, but that's usually like the
Right.
go-to sort of.
Trazodone or mirtazapine seem to be the real common. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now you read this book, read
Hmm.
about sleep restriction.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I implemented it that night, and it took a night or two for it to kick in, but once it did, it actually worked really well.
Okay. All right.
And so my sleep restriction window was 5 to 5.5 hours, and I was getting really good quality sleep. I remember having that sensation of legitimately waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, like, I don't want to give the impression that, like, I've gone, several months or a year. However, it's been like the details of what exactly at which point happened in my point of recovery. But I did have intermittent success with sleep, but it was so intermittent, and it was it's still just so. It's not like this was the first time I slept in 8 months or a year or however long it's been.
Right. Right.
This is the first time I remember when I was able to get it. consecutively, and it felt really good. And although it was only 5 to 5.5 hours of sleep, it felt like it was very efficient sleep. I mean, the crux of it was that, like, when I got out of bed the next morning, I felt fine. So I was like, oh, great. Okay. This is, I guess I found the thing. And I went through the program, and I was, gradually added on a little bit more time to the sleep window. And some time passed, and I think that I started to I didn't have a term for this back then, but I had a speed bump. And then I had a lot of inconsistent things. So I started to play around with the idea of, if I spend a lot of time in bed, or not even a lot, but something like 7 to 8 hours in bed, that's no good. You have to spend what will do it is to spend a certain minuscule amount of time in bed to get that happen. So then that became its own game of me playing around with the sleep window. Is this a common thing that you've seen with
I've definitely heard heard this from the CBTI world.
So that was really, and then I was in a state of, I guess, limbo for quite a bit. I heard, there are some sleep coaches on YouTube that I checked out for a bit, and the message was helpful, but for whatever reason, it ultimately didn't stick with me. I was in yo-yo land for the longest time, maybe 4 to 5 months, and I went to see these sleep coaches, and more in hindsight, the stuff that what they told me, it wasn't wrong, but for whatever reason, it really didn't resonate with me. And now that I'm looking back on it, it really drives home the concept of how some people's coaching styles aren't a one size fits all sort of thing.
True. Yeah.
It wasn't like, I don't want to make I don't want to say who the sleep coach was, because I don't want to imply that they weren't doing their job correctly. They absolutely were. What the message was,
right?
But for whatever reason, I don't know if I wasn't ready to hear the message or whatever. It just wasn't. And at this point in time, somebody introduced the idea of trazodone to me, and I've never heard of trazodone before. And weirdly enough, my best friend, who I interviewed on my own channel recently, it's weird. We both started and overcame insomnia at the same time.
Wow, that really is interesting.
Yeah, and he also had work-related stress as well. But it's not like he was starting his career at this like I was. He was working the same line of work for a bit, and then for whatever reason, it just started for him. But anyway, so
interesting. Wow.
He started trazodone at the same time that somebody else who suffered from mild sleep disruption told me about trazodone as well. So I saw it as a sign from the universe and said, okay, well, I guess, I'll look this up. And I did my own, for what it's worth, medical research. Not that I have a medical background or anything, but it's like, okay, it looks like this drug's been around for a while. It looks like it's relatively safe. What do I have to lose? And sure enough, what do you know? The drug worked. And there's not enough quotation marks in the solar system for that sentence. But I mean, as far as I knew, it worked really well for maybe like 9 months or something like that. And then, weirdly enough, it started to slip.
Yeah.
And I started to, I wasn't sure why. It's like, oh, well, the dope. I had so many people swear to me that you don't develop a tolerance to this. This is supposed to be the magic drug where you don't develop a tolerance to it. But let me up the dosage just in case. And that started its own little game of maybe it's it has to be 75 milligrams instead of 50 milligrams. But what if I also took trazodone with some other supplements? I bet that'll be it. But maybe I'm developing a tolerance to those other supplements. So now I have to develop these. I had these 2-week periods. I have to cycle on and cycle off these two. The amount of work, I put into just sleeping,
yeah,
unbelievable. And I remember just feeling so demoralized at looking at all the. I mean, I had this. Can I show you like my the supplement pills thing that I have?
Sure.
Let me go get this thing.
I think I remember seeing a picture on your channel on Instagram.
Yeah. Um, of course, I can't find it right now, but I can't find the exact one. But so this is something that you would use for if you were like 95 years old and you had 20 different conditions going on, like something like this, with each capsule was filled full to the brim, totally
right,
packed
with all these supplements, all these things that are gonna be the magic cure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so demoralizing taking a fistful of pills every night.
Mhm.
And it only kind of worked sometimes.
Yeah.
And that started the worst speed bump ever. I had a speed bump that lasted about 6 months.
Ugh.
And
Yeah.
it was just really, that was really rough. And weirdly enough, towards the end of it, maybe I like the fourth or fifth month, I did some more Googling about how to get over insomnia, and that's how I came across the Sleep Coach School.
Wow.
And I came across the NATO book,
Mhm.
and I read it, and it didn't really do much for me.
Mhm.
And like the concepts really, the concepts made sense, but unfortunately, I was at the point where I think I had a bit of skepticism. I've already gone through all of the things that
Right.
one says to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this, okay, fine. This is going to be the next guaranteed thing. I've already gone through 23 and a half guaranteed things that were going to definitely get me over this. And
Yeah. It's so interesting. Just if I can just pause you for just one
sure.
second, because listening to your story and like coming from a coach perspective, I'm like, well, yeah, like of course it came back because you had never dealt with the root of the problem, which was of course the fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm like not so sure that it was a speed bump or more of you had a truce with insomnia, right?
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I just found, the right conditions to prevent it from attacking me. But then I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's exactly the terminology and the way they use to describe my problem with people now. I never really addressed the root cause of the problem. And of course it was fear-based.
Yes.
It's so obvious in hindsight, but
I know.
But
at the time you're like, what? No, it doesn't like, but then once you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that term hyperarousal for me was like, that's what's happening. It's like, finally I had a term, right? Yeah.
It was really cool to see. The thing that did really help me out with the book was that it was helpful to see every single scenario, fear, concern, all laid out. That started to give me a lot of hope. Although I wasn't seeing sleep just yet, it made me like, oh, okay, this is all accounted for. And I don't think I really saw that. I don't think I really saw that. Saw it all laid out so much. And the fact that it was very reassuring, almost in like a statistic sense, that that this author had seen this exact symptom or scenario lots of times beforehand.
Right.
So, and I think that really influenced my coaching style, and I really used that in the drop-in calls during the time in the certification program. I really lean on the fact that this is not unusual.
Right.
This is very typical insomnia 101 level stuff. So don't think that your I hate what I tell people is that your insomnia is not special.
Yeah, you're special, but your insomnia is not.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
I say that too. It's like, because everybody thinks they have the worst case, right? Like nobody's ever had it this bad. Mine's different. It's unique. Like, nope.
I hate to break it to you, but your insomnia is not special.
Yeah.
And So, but it still, like I said, it still wasn't. I wasn't seeing the results of good sleep just yet.
So time
And
frame, where are we now? Like
so,
as far as
yeah, so this is about like maybe a month. Uh, my last month of this awful 6 month speed bump.
okay, so we're in year like six-ish, 6.5.
6.5. So we're coming
Okay.
up towards the end, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And I to add to this terrible 6 month period, I had to go on a work trip, and work trips were always a big trigger for me.
Mhm.
Or they became a trigger for me in terms of sleep since insomnia started. And it was whenever I went on a work trip that I was guaranteed, oh, you're just not sleeping the entire time, definitely, no matter what. And I was just at my wit's end at this. It was day 1 or 2 of this work trip, and I had gone who knows how long without sleeping. And I called my dad, having a panic attack. I'm not really prone to to panic attacks. Oh, I missed one. I just remembered missed one key point of my journey where I went to the doctor's office again for the second time. It's just my general practitioner, and they're going to prescribe me Prozac or something like that. And when this time around, I knew that I it wasn't going to do anything. I knew deep down they're like, oh, we can start this drug and that drug, and I was like, I've done this. I've juggled all the medication, and I just felt really scared about that. And I think it was the week after that he went on this work trip.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, I was on this. I was having a panic attack. I was on the phone with my dad, and I said, and I even went to like an insomnia coach and a sleep coach, and it didn't work. And he said, well, why don't you just get a second opinion? And thank God he said that. Just look up somebody else. Maybe you just need to hear it differently, or whatever. And I was like, and I had no expectations of doing that. I was just more like, fine, okay, whatever. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And I looked up, the sleep coach program again, even though the book didn't do anything for me. And I was like, this is the
Mhm.
same program by the same guy. Already know what he's gonna say.
Mhm.
Wakefulness, yada yada. And I can't stress this enough how little hope I had. But anyway,
Yeah. No,
I,
it's important. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I signed up for the insomnia immunity program, and I started watching. And it was in that exact moment of watching, for whatever reason, I don't know what the cosmic coincidence was, but when I heard Daniel in those 2 4-minute videos describe perceived threats and befriending wakefulness,
It clicked. You're like,
it
oh.
clicked.
So
I'm
what year is this? Is this like 2024?
Yes, this was
Okay.
March. It was mid-March of
Okay.
2024.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
I've
Okay.
looked up the date a few times. It was when did I sign up for the insomnia immunity program? Because that's the exact point. And that night, I slept, and it wasn't just a freakish one-off. It kept getting better and better and better. In full disclosure, I think I combined it with another round of sleep restriction therapy, whatever. But my
Mhm.
outlook towards it was different. I
Mhm.
wasn't
Mhm.
running away from anything. I was
Mhm.
willing to it. If I wasn't fully willing yet, I was playing around the idea of being open to
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
awake at night and just
Yeah.
being. I mean, the specific thing that I showed myself was, I don't have to be afraid of this, because I was still on this work trip at the time. This hotel room is objectively not scary. There's
Right.
nothing to, Daniel likes to use the analogy of the bear. There's no grizzly bear trying to get you, whatever. And it's like, then that's totally true here. It's in
Mhm.
fact quite a peaceful, serene setting.
Right.
And I just made a note. I've Before I went to bed, I made a note of how peaceful the whole place was, and that carried with me when I got home from the trip. And yeah, I knew that something was different when I was going into like week 3, week,
Okay.
week 5, and I wasn't really. I don't think I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get sleep anymore. I seem to be onto something here.
Hmm.
Let me just hold on to this. And then it became a month, 2 months, 3 months, and I was like, holy shit! I think that I actually might be onto something, because this isn't like a new silver bullet
Right.
supplement.
This isn't a fluke. Like something here is really
Yeah.
happening.
But there's
Yeah.
no there. I didn't even have the room to play around with the fact that, like, oh, maybe if this starts to fail, I'll up the dosage. There's no dosage to
Right.
these teachings. It's just you have it. Once you've learned it, now you've internalized that concept, you can
Yeah.
play around with it. So it was, and my recovery was just took off really quickly like that. And I know that a lot
Mhm.
of people's recoveries, obviously have like this yo-yo pattern, and they'll have like these speed bumps. I didn't really have, but once I had that eureka moment and on,
Mhm.
I didn't really have a speed bump period, or maybe I had like one or two occasional
Mhm.
lights or whatever, but it wasn't really that bad. And I think the reason for that is because, like I said, because I had experience with another insomnia coach
Mhm.
beforehand. I was
Mhm.
doing a lot of things well.
Mhm.
Like I would go out at night. I would say, like, no, I'm not going to cancel any plans. I'm going to, do the thing. I'm not going to let insomnia dictate my life. I was doing
Yeah.
that aspect really well, but I didn't have the full, complete, and total package. But once I did finally have that, like that last piece of the puzzle that actually addressed the fear itself, it just
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah. What team were you on? Green or orange?
I couldn't really tell you.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Well, the weird thing is that I used almost no part of the program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just those 2 videos. I
Wow.
went to one drop-in call.
Mhm.
I think it was Alina that was my coach.
Okay.
I wasn't even
Okay.
sure. I
So
just went.
that's yeah, green team. I was on
Yeah,
that team in the
yeah, yeah.
beginning.
So I mean, that's the coach I'm coaching on. That was coaching for the certification process and stuff. But
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
only went to one of those because I just heard all these people talk about all these potential triggers and stuff, and it just really scared me. And I just, nope, too scared for me. I'm gonna not do that anymore. I didn't even really watch the rest of it. I'm sure I must have watched the other videos and whatnot, but I mean, I was subscribed to the program for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months or whatever, and I used
Mhm.
almost none of it. But the stuff that I did use, I don't even know why I didn't really take full advantage of the program. It wasn't that I wasn't interested in overcoming insomnia. It's not that I didn't see results. I think I was just afraid of. I found something, and I don't want to mess with it anymore. Like, this seems to be doing well for me.
Mhm.
But
Closing the hood, we call that.
closing. Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a teaching. That's a teaching. But kid, continue.
Yeah. So, yeah, as time went on, like I was at like the 4th or 5th month of recovery, and this was the point where I really started to feel confident. I know that confident is a tricky word when it comes to our outlook with sleep. I feel like that's like a work in progress, like a placeholder word until we find something better to articulate that. But for lack of
Mhm.
a better term for now, my confidence was good. It was really
Mhm.
good. Speed bumps didn't really, or the fear of speed bumps weren't really affecting me nearly as much.
Mhm.
And and yeah, yeah, it was those 2 videos.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So then you were in the program for 4 or 5 months, and
Mm.
then when you left the immunity program, and did you continue kind of with your recovery sort of on your own? I mean, did that process continue for you? And when at one point, because I know we spoke when you were trying to decide whether or not to become a coach,
Mhm.
and then I know you talked to Daniel, but so yeah, so how did that work from when you left the program and
Yeah. So I think I was pretty much recovered for a while, and only then was I waited like another 2 to 3 months before I was brave enough to cancel the subscription because I was convinced that like, oh well, if I as soon as my credit card stops making these payments, that means my body's going to lose the ability to sleep. Of course, fucking bullshit, of course, but
Mhm.
that's not the way
Mhm.
that my my psychology saw it.
Mhm.
And but there's one I started really getting interested in how that stuff all worked. I mean, it was a really profound experience. And to see, it was very interesting to see practical psychology.
Mhm.
I mean, in like, I'm not talking about like in some woo woo way. Like this made it an objective, measurable 10 out of 10 positive change to my life. I mean, it was like really like a before and after moment for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have to deal with this horrible, horrible thing anymore. And I was just really interested in thinking about it because now I could knew how to articulate it. Now I knew how to approach it. And I once revisiting the other NATO concepts, and it was I could say, okay, now I can better understand what they were talking about when he said that. Now I totally that resonates with me, and I totally agree with it, and totally makes perfect sense. Um, and there's one night I was with my girlfriend, and she was having trouble. She has her own trouble sleeping, and I gave her some basic teachings, and I pulled up one of Daniel's videos from the sleep coach school, and I helped articulate that sort of stuff. And she fell asleep, and which has, great. But I was also thinking the next morning, I was like, that felt really good.
Mm.
I
To be
felt
able
like,
to help her.
yeah, I
That's
could
awesome.
articulate that, and I think that day I was thinking about um, I started thinking about what if I actually became an insomnia coach, and of course that introduced a whole lot of other fears because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like now okay, now I'm putting pressure on myself as the guy who has to sleep, and I have to sleep really well. And I was still on trazodone at this point in time, so that means that like if I have to practice what I preach, I have to gradually work myself off of that.
Well,
Um,
by the way, also, you're a human and all humans, have imperfect sleep. So,
yeah, very, very true. And throughout this time, I think the night that I started thinking about or started to reach out to the sleep coaches to pick their brains about the field. You were one of the first people, maybe the first that I started to ask about the field and the line of work. And I maybe
Mhm.
had like a small speed bump at that time, maybe like it lasted a day or two, but
Oh, yeah, I think that you had mentioned that when we talked.
yeah,
Which
and
pretty much everybody does when they decide that they're gonna do the course certification. It's
yeah,
like, cue the speed bump, right?
yeah, it's just right.
Mhm.
That train is never late,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
right on schedule. But like all speed bumps, it
they
was
pass.
fine. And
Yeah.
it's so crazy now that now I think about insomnia all day. I'm surround I'm surrounded by so many triggers
Yeah.
between the clients that we help out and developing, curating my own insomnia related content for my own private practice and my channel, and just thinking
Mhm.
about insomnia but more so in an interested way. You would think that I would now never ever be able to sleep. I mean, I was so afraid of insomnia when I had insomnia that I was convinced that if I saw the word insomnia,
Mm.
I won't get
Mhm.
sleep that night.
Mhm.
Like it was Voldemort or something. Like
Yeah, no, I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
the forbidden word you can't say.
Yeah, don't say that word. Yeah.
Don't say that word, and which is of course total nonsense in
Mhm.
hindsight.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's just interesting that you would think which so I the whole process proved my own point wrong where like no, I'm surrounded by this stuff all the time and I sleep better than I ever have before.
Yeah. It's interesting. I to totally have the same kind of thoughts about it, am I gonna I'm around this all the time. I'm talking about it all day long, you know. it doesn't even affect me at all anymore. But it was definitely in the beginning, like, how's that going to work? And it's like,
Yeah.
the way I see it is like, I view any kind of a trigger as like an opportunity to grow, right? It's like where
Mm,
there's still healing to be done. If I'm triggered, there's a reason for that.
yeah.
So I don't avoid them anymore. In
Hmm.
fact, I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. What's still there? What fear is still remaining? It's
Yeah.
helpful. They're helpful teachers.
Mm. Yeah. And it's something that ultimately it just makes you that much, stronger or confident as you as you return, as your sleep gets better and better and better. And you get to the point where you'll have nights where you would tell yourself previously that you would have no shortage of reasons why you wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. You
Mhm.
have plans the next day, both stressful and exciting. You expose yourself accidentally to some blue light. You had some caffeine, God forbid, at 3 o'clock that afternoon. And like, there's like a list of like several
Right.
dozen reasons why you won't get any sleep. And despite all that, you were still able to get sleep that night. And it's just, you can't help but learn as time goes on that, that's all bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sleep
Totally.
conditions do not have to be perfect in order for you to sleep. In fact, they can be so far from perfect,
Yep.
and it doesn't matter. I mean, my
Yeah.
sleep hygiene now is horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to bed anytime from like 10 o'clock at night to 2 in the morning. I have caffeine. I drink coffee all day. I have caffeine until like, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever. Um, I'm using my laptop. I'm using it up until like right before the minute right before I go to bed. I'm doing everything exactly wrong, apparently, allegedly, according to.
According to sleep hygiene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I sleep like a baby.
Oh, I'm so glad, John. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I always tell clients, it's more your belief that about that thing. That's what's going to cause the issue. Like if you believe that thing is going to keep you awake at night, yeah, it probably will, right? The beliefs
yeah,
are powerful. So it's like when we see them for what they are, and that kind of releases the power, the hold they have over us. It's like, okay, we're no longer prisoners to those
yeah,
because they're obviously not true.
yeah.
Wow, this has been such a great conversation. You just told your story so well, and I'm just so happy that I get to work in the same sphere as you. And I
Thank you.
love learning from other coaches, and I love what you're doing. So I have two last questions for you before we finish up our conversation today. So the first one is, if you could go back to kind of the beginning of your insomnia 7 years ago, and when you were really, really struggling in the throes of it, is there something you could say to that version of yourself then? Maybe
Oh,
some advice you might give yourself.
oh yeah. I mean, like so many things. I'm not sure which piece of knowledge or wisdom I would give myself, but I think I would tell myself, you don't have to do anything to achieve sleep. You're not going to find it at the bottom of that pill bottle. You're not going to find it at you're not going to find it at, sorry about that. My laptop's being annoying.
It's
You're
okay.
not going to find it at any sort of exercise or breath work or any sort of thing. It's just it's something that can happen to you, and
Mhm,
it's something that happens to you.
mhm.
Um, and then I would just tell. I mean, I guess the easy answer would be to just go to the sleep coach school.
Yeah, right.
That'll get over it. That you'll get over it in pretty quickly. Um, but yeah, it's also don't worry, this is not special, this is not unique. I think that
Mhm.
was the number one fear, is that this is not a unique special thing. You haven't lost the ability to sleep. You've just picked up a new fear. But
Yep.
fears are malleable.
Yeah.
You can
Yep.
work at that. I mean, you don't have, and it's like, if you don't believe me, ask yourself. Like, if you probably don't have the same fears now as you did when you were 5 years old, you know?
Right. Right. Yep. We can meet those and make peace with those.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a perfect thing to say to yourself back then.
Mhm.
So then the last question is, what has there been silver linings of this experience for you?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is that I can use my knowledge and my experience to help other people out. I the way I put it is I suffered so that other people don't have to, or at least
Mhm,
nearly as long. The
mhm,
other thing that I'm curious, the silver lining that I have yet to explore is that if I can overcome something as awful as insomnia with this approach, what else can I apply this to? So I'm sort of excited, like what other areas of my life can this sort of practical acceptance carry through? And I was telling Alina this recently, that I was always skeptical about the word acceptance because it's very common I open up any self-help book and it's going to have the word acceptance in there, at least 80 times. And it's not that it's not, of course, there's a lot of truth to it.
mhm,
But it's become so used that it's almost become trite, which is unfortunate because
mhm,
there
mhm,
is truth to it. So whenever I hear, it's like it's become, as true as it is, it's almost become watered down so much. But to see it
mhm,
have such an objective, practical um, benefit to my life, it makes me realize, oh, no, 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 there's a lot of this
yeah,
is true.
yeah.
And I wonder what else it can be true for. So that's something that I'm just starting to play around with. I don't have any other insights beyond that, but I'm very interested in seeing what else I can do.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I find that it is applicable to pretty much every area of my life.
Mhm.
And I agree with you that that word, like, it kind of gets overused. It almost becomes a platitude, which
Mhm.
is unfortunate because it's like, oh gosh, because there is an embodied acceptance that, it's not cognitive work. That's
Mhm.
just not the way that it happens. And so I think that word just gets misunderstood a lot. It's like, well, sure, yeah, I accept. It's like, no, it's like it's this full body
Mhm.
knowing that I'm going to be okay, right? It's just I'm going to accept whatever comes because
You,
I'm capable of handling it,
you know,
and
and
that's the difference. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. It made me realize that that might have been what turned me off from it initially, because I was under the impression that there had to be this that there's something almost woo woo about it, and that
Hmm.
was is this like a spiritual practice that do I have to change my outlook with my relationship with the
Hmm.
universe just to
Hmm.
get sleep happen? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And it's like, but no, it's like, don't worry, you don't have to be a hippie, you don't have to change your life in any way. If anything, the message is to live your life in the most authentic way.
Authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so don't worry, you're not gonna be
Yeah.
put on a grass
And
skirt.
you almost can't help but like I always tell people too, it's like there's nothing special you need to do. Like
Mm,
this will happen organically
yeah.
and naturally as part of this whole recovery process. And you can't like skip from A to Z, you don't get to bypass any of it, but there's nothing special you need to do to get to acceptance. It's the entire journey,
Hmm.
and you will just get there naturally. And so it's just so interesting, watching the whole process, and I love it. So fascinating. So
Mm.
well, I sure appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story with the community. It's going to benefit so many people. You're so real, you're so down to earth and just relatable, and I know it's going to speak to a lot of people. So thank you so much. You can find John at Insomnia to Peace on Instagram. That's your handle.
Hmm.
And yeah, if you find yourself needing more support, please head over to thesleepcoachschool.com, and we are happy to be of support to you.
Hmm.
Thanks, community. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope you found the video you just saw full of inspirational content and full of educational content as well, because that's really what we try to do here in the school. We try to educate and inspire. And if you're finding that things are clicking for you and sleep is happening easier and you're leaving the struggle, please let us know in the comment section, because we live for that. We live for hearing how somebody is finding sleep and life becoming lighter and easier. And not only are you doing us a huge favor as sleep coaches and like filling our tank with that gas that makes us never want to stop doing this, but you're also helping the community. You're helping by inspiring other people, and by commenting, you're telling YouTube that this was interesting, and YouTube feeds our content to more people so that they can discover our teachings and things get easier for them. So again, if you found things getting easier for you, please let us know in the comment section. We can't wait to hear from you.